Welcome back to the Athletes Podcast. This is episode 89 featuring Ben Boudreau, the head coach for the Fort Wayne Komets, a former pro hockey player who's now turned to the coaching realm. This is his 7th year coaching, actually, more specifically. They just secured the Kelly Cup and the ECHL championships with our boy Dylan Ferguson, who was featured on episode 28 of the Athletes Podcast. This is an incredible episode. We talk about his career, both playing now as a coach, some of the insights he's gained, and where exactly he sees a lot of opportunities for kids to make a significant impact on their team moving forward. Like I mentioned, this is episode 89 of the Athletes Podcast featuring Ben Boudreau. I hope you enjoy. Here we go. Is that Cooper in the background that I just saw?
Hey, Coop. Yeah, he's just got one shin pad on and he's fighting a toy soldier.
he's ready.
He just loves fighting, man. It's and even when he witnessed our win at home, like he's throwing his shit everywhere, like, you know, up Komets win. It's amazing. He does whatever he sees. It's scary at the same time, but man, it's been unreal so far.
It makes you realize some of the things that you do, that there's always someone watching, right?
Honestly, like I couldn't imagine like his and I know we'll do the podcast here in a second and everything, but every time he wants to play hockey, which is every day, you can't play unless you have the anthem, but the anthem can't be played until you have the introduction song, which is Welcome to the Jungle, and you can't move the song until like it's at a certain point. So like the kids, like I didn't realize he's the ref. He's checking for holes in the net like before the game starts. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? And then I realized the next game he's watching the linesman check for holes in the net. Like it's the funniest thing to pick up.
That's awesome. I just started coaching a T-ball team this past week, and I didn't realize all of the little intricacies that go into being a coach for a bunch of 4 and 5 year olds ripping around. There's a lot that goes into it, to say the least.
Yeah, it's fun though, man. That's it should be a lot of fun. 4 and 5 year olds, a lot of headaches.
Yeah, it's the best. It's full of energy, getting a ton of workouts in. But yeah, that's kind of why I was excited to bring you on today. Friday, you were crowned champions of the Kelly Cup, the Fort Wayne Komets. You are the head coach, 7th year coaching, rookie coach, first ever hired, and you guys scored 17 seconds into your first game, so you started off hot. And you are clearly doing some great things down there in Fort Wayne. Ben Boudreau, welcome to the Athletes Podcast. Appreciate you coming on. And hopefully we're going to be able to dive into a bit about your story. You've got a pretty unique background, to say the least. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and kind of give a quick version of who you are and how you've been able to make such an impact in hockey so far.
Thanks. No, I really appreciate that. And funny to think about what's happened in this last week to how everything's kind of come about has been wild. And my story really isn't any different than any other guy growing up in Ontario and, you know, playing local junior, whatever it is. And I went to school for 3 years at Loyalist in Belleville, took hockey completely off and got my degree in TV and film. And I had a job at CBC downtown Toronto, and when I got my first opportunity to play pro hockey, so I was heading in one way in the direction of my life, and got an opportunity to play, and it took me on an unbelievable road. Like I was a suitcase a little bit professionally, played a couple years, took a couple years off. I went to Europe to play, got into coaching at hockey academies out west in the Okanagan Valley, and I was at the right place at the right time to get my first pro opportunity, where it was late in August and I knew the coaches had just got hired in Hershey, and put in a call to the Oilers, submitted my resume, never thinking I'd have this chance to do it. But they gave me a contract, and it was for $15,000 for the season to go down and be the assistant coach in Bakersfield, California, and took my girl, who's also from, Belleville area. And we just went on a wild ride. Like we had no money. She couldn't work in the States. We didn't know where the hell we were going. And, it was just a dream that we kept chasing. I didn't even know if I really wanted to be a coach. I just wanted to be involved in hockey. And, year 1 turned into year 2, year 3. And it was like, shit, I'm not too bad at this thing. Like guys are responding well. I can think the game. And, it really became a strength of mine was coaching. And I know the history laid out before me, my father, the path that he kind of blazed through, and, the name, the weight that brings to, But I really started getting into my own in Fort Wayne. There was a great history where my dad retired there, and he coached there as well, won Coach of the Year. And here's this unbelievable organization, the history that this team has, and they always have the biggest attendance every single year. It's the top dog of minor league hockey. And when they gave me a chance as an assistant coach, we jumped at it, had a good couple years, took over for the coach in my third year. And you're right, like you talked about it in the introduction. You don't know about it until you have the weight of the world looking down on you. So my first pro game behind the bench was in front of 10,500 people, and everybody's watching. You got the Vegas affiliation. You built this team, and we score 17 seconds into that game on the first shot of the game, and the crowd went nuts. I'd never been a part of a bigger celebration to start the season off, and we ended up winning that game. And obviously pandemic killed our season. I know this is a long story and I'm going yada yada kind of thing, but we got back to it this year, and there's 26 teams in our league. 13 decided to start playing in November. We were one of 13 that didn't start playing, and the other 12 teams in our group all decided to scrap the season because they couldn't make it work financially, and we were the only one that opted into play starting in February. And so we played a 50 game season compared to the regular 72 game schedule. And we had a great year. We played the same two teams 41 out of 50 times, so it got redundant. And then we just went into the playoffs and had this magical run. And it was capped off on a Friday night. We were 11-0 on Friday nights. We ended up being 12-0. We had all these great stories, but for the pandemic, and you know how it is, everything's closed. They're not allowing people, but we got full capacity for the finals and 10,500 screaming fans, all the businesses, people. It was, we were sharing the cup with everybody. When you drink, you're partying with hundreds of people. Like, you didn't even think about the pandemic anymore. It was the first sense of normalcy. And it took a championship in a whole city to come together to kind of embrace the moment. And it was just an unbelievable ending to a crazy, crazy year. And it's been a great ride. And doing things like this is part of the fun things that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible to see. Fergie is a friend of mine and he was obviously an integral part of your guys' journey to the Cup this summer or this year. But I just see such an amazing cohesive group down in Fort Wayne there. It's pretty incredible to see, not necessarily typically adopted down in the States, the sport of hockey. Obviously everyone knows that Canada, it's the sport, the be all end all, but down in the States it can get lost behind some of the other big four sports. So obviously we've established Fort Wayne as a unique spot, but tell me a bit about like your or where you were growing up to now knowing as a coach what it takes to get to that level, because you played your whole life growing up and obviously got to an extremely high level. But I think that probably speaks to how you're able to be such a good coach now and do what you're able to do because you've been in their boots and walked the walk. So maybe if you could elaborate on how you were able to apply your knowledge that you gained as a player to now as a coach.
Yeah, I had a bunch of different coaches, as being a suitcase, or, that's what they call you when you've played on a lot of teams traveling around. And, there's negatives and there's positives. You got to try to find the positive in everyone. And when I played in the ECHL, it was under Jared Bednar, who's now in Colorado. And I just remember how he treated me and how he dealt with me, and my role on the team was a bottom end guy that shouldn't have taken a lot of time, but he still put in that time with me. And I watched him win in the American Hockey League and how he celebrated in the National Hockey League. And it was like, well, if it was any indication of how he treated me, back in 2009, I'm sure he's done that with a ton of other players too, and it got recognized. And so you try to pick up something, whether it's negative or positive, from each experience. And I've had a lot of them. And even coaching, I worked under 5 head coaches in my first 4 years pro. Like we got one fired in my fourth year, my third year. There was a fired coach, and Robbie Fatorik, the great Robbie Fatorik, came in, who was 66 and won Stanley Cups and everything. And, he told me it was, there's no right way to coach the game. There's no wrong way to coach the game. There's only the way your coach wants you to play. And if you can get everybody to do that, then that's the key to being successful. And it always struck me as so true. Like, you've got to work with your guys. You can't have a separation where it's do as I say and, screw you if you don't like me. I think those days are really gone. So if you can get to know the individual and you can have them embrace what you're trying to do, and it's a two-way street. You got to do everything for them if you want them to do the same for you. And that's really how I found everything kind of worked. And for me as a younger guy at 36, I'm 5'9". I'm losing my hair. I never made it to the NHL. So the guys with great resumes don't want a little mouse squawking at them on the bench, rather than let's work with you. What do you see? What can I do? How do you feel? And at the end of the day, you make your best decision, and they'll respect that because you're working with them instead of telling them, this is what I want. And there's got to be the mutual respect. And I think that was something I found out in my career. And that's something I really think that's allowed me to have success, even though it being in the short term. You've got to work with these athletes because it's a different generation. It's a different brand, and they're coached differently. They train differently. And I really think it takes somebody to know these people on a human level before you try to get the athlete out of them on the ice or whatever playing surface you're coaching.
Yeah, words like empathy, compassion, understanding weren't typically used in hockey 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now they are. And it's, having an understanding for what someone's going through or what specific they're looking for in a coach is important. I think it's interesting because there's still a glimmer of that old school hockey with, a guy like Barry Trotz in New York, the way he can still get his whole entire team, to your point, buying into a system, which is the key to obviously performing well. If they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals without that. But I mean, what's your take? Obviously, your goal, as you've mentioned previously, is to make it to the NHL, coach at the NHL level. Where are you in that process now? Are you feeling confident in your abilities? Where are some aspects that you're trying to improve now so that you can get to that level, if it's not in the near future, but eventually?
Yeah, I think, and it's cliche. Like I learn every single day. Like I'm familiar with the ECHL. I've been coaching in it for 7 years. I've played in it. And I mean, that's something I feel great about. And after winning, I feel like my wife, my kid, and, we're expecting another one here in the next month or so.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's a great spot to be as far as work and everything. But if you've got dreams, I've always chased my dreams. Like once I left my hometown of St. Catharines, Ontario at the age of 20, I realized, oh my God, it's been almost 2 decades and I haven't called anywhere home. Like it's been on to the next thing because I want to go play hockey, or I want to go coach hockey, or I want to go to Europe, or I want to do this job. And I've just been my entire life just chasing something that's always interested me. And for me, what Canadian kid doesn't want to hold the Stanley Cup over his head? And that would be the ultimate goal. There's no doubt. And I know how tough that is, but you can't be afraid of the opportunity, and you got to go where that is. So, I mean, climbing the ladder definitely interests me. Having security is something I've never been afforded in my hockey life. They've always been 1-year deals. And so one way or the other, I think if there's an opportunity that comes knocking, to whether it's go to the OHL or major junior and become a head coach, or whether it's an assistant or a head coaching job in the American Hockey League, I would definitely look at it, because I think that's the stepping stone to get to the NHL, which is going to be the end goal. But there's so many quality coaches and quality people, and it's never easy. So just to have a job, you feel lucky at, especially with what we've just gone through. So to win, to have a job, and to be wanted is almost a crazy feeling that not a lot of people have. And I just feel fortunate that whatever comes my way is going to be, we'll have to deal with it at that time. So I'm just living in the moment for now, and never stop trying to chase dreams.
That's the best way to be. All right. And I think you're getting attention because you deserve it. You've put that work in. So it's definitely kudos to you. You mentioned growing up in St. Catharines. We're recording from St. Catharines right now. Can you talk a bit about the Niagara region, maybe Southern Ontario, and how it was growing up there, and what the hockey culture was kind of like here?
It's, you know what, it's kind of changed a little bit. I mean, I'll always call Niagara my home. St. Catharines. I grew up in Port Dalhousie on the north end,
Yeah.
kind of. And, you know, I had a bunch of buddies, you know, that either played for Brock or played for the junior teams. And I think it's such a hidden gem. Like, we've had a family hockey school in St. Catharines for 39 years. I mean, the pandemic's wiped it out the last 2 summers, but every year in August, we bring all our family back, former friends, former students that are now parents that have kids are in it. I mean, it's, you know, St. Catharines, the city of St. Catharines, and that whole area is extremely special to not only me, but my father, my brother, my sister, the whole Boudreau family. And I know I'm talking with Rod Mahood this upcoming weekend and stuff too. I mean, it's a blast. I mean, if I could ever get back to Niagara, I would. I mean, prices for housing got to come down a little bit.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it kind of priced me out a while ago, but you know, I love visiting. If I could, I'd love to bring the cup back into my hometown. You ever go to Swiss Chalet on 4th Avenue? You'll see a lot of former pictures of my dad bringing the cups there, and I would love to do it. I'd love to go golfing a couple nights with the same boys I grew up with. This time, just have a cup wrapped around the golf cart a little bit, but it's a special place, and there's really no other place I would even consider calling home, because I love Niagara. You can there's a little bit of everything there. The people are great, and I'll always consider that my home.
I love it. Well, next time you're back, if you want to get around out at St. Catharines, you let me know and we'll make that happen.
Awesome. I used to sneak on, and when the starter would leave after 4 o'clock, we'd take the back entrance and we would just pretend like we were members. And that's
Nice.
I remember, like, hey, Ben, how are you? My 4th time out this week. Just act like you belong.
I love it. You had a full-time membership there. That's awesome. Tell me about how, like, that, because that's one of the things that I love to bring up is misconceptions of kind of what professional hockey is like, and, you know, professional sports for that matter, because a lot of athletes, young kids especially, will see the glamour of the big four, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and think, I want to be a professional athlete. And there's a huge percentage of professional athletes who do not even have televised events on, whatever the case may be. This is part of the grind, the grit that it takes to get to those amazing levels is the minor leagues, the ECHL, the AHL. Can you maybe dive into what it takes to get through these levels to continue to see that success long term, and for guys that spend, you know, 10 plus years in these leagues, how hard and dedicated they actually have to work to stay at the top of their game, despite maybe not receiving the same kind of attention that a lot of people do in, you know, the big four?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why people want to play in the minors. I mean, lifestyle is one for sure, because you're not going to get the type of money that you want to make when you see the pros and the millions of dollars. I mean, if you're a rookie, you're not making anything more than $575 a week, even though you get provided your apartment and your cable utilities and stuff. But it's definitely not for the money, because the most we got a 26-week season, so the most a rookie's going to make is $13,000 in half a year, and you know that you're generally spending that as a rookie. Same thing, it's almost twice that for a veteran. But if you're a veteran, you've got a kid, you got a family. I mean, it's tough to provide for them at the time. And so you got to do it for a love of the game, because it's not easy. I mean, you get 1 day off a week, 72 games, busing everywhere. I mean, you're on the road for 36 of them. You're at home for 36 of them. It takes the toll on your body, the mind, and it's not easy for anybody. But a lot of people play for different reasons. One, it's because they've got a passion for the game, and I completely respect that they want to play because it's what they do. It's what they grew up wanting to do. And here in Fort Wayne, I think a lot of people lived out their dreams when we just won this week. And another type of player you'll find is guys that play for opportunity, that they come out of college or they're undrafted and they want to get a great set of eyes on them, which is why they come to Fort Wayne, centrally located, over 10,000 fans. And, like we got a guy like Stephen Harper. He's a Niagara guy up in Burlington. Hamilton was highly touted as a younger guy, spent his college career over at Acadia, and we signed him as a rookie and just became the MVP in the playoffs. And next thing you know, the phone's ringing. It's Edmonton, it's Detroit, and who's this Harper kid? And that's why he came to Fort Wayne, was to get exposure, hopefully so he can get a good payday and keep climbing the ladder, and the dream will never die. So there's a lot of different reasons, but as glamorous as it is when you see the highlights or you see the games in front of fans, there's so much downtime as a professional athlete when you get out of your city and you don't have a ton of money to spend. I mean, you're at the practice facility from 8:30 maybe until 12 or 12:30. It's 4 hours of your day. And then if you don't have a vehicle, I mean, you're stuck in a foreign city, but you don't know a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of video games, or, if you're a single guy, that's the time that's probably the toughest when you're away from your family and friends. You don't have the luxuries. You're an athlete, so you can't be out partying, you can't be out drinking, and there's just a lot of downtime to kill. So those are the things that nobody will really understand until you go through that. Is how much time you have to yourself just to think about things. And if they're not going well, it can spiral out of control. And just to keep your foot on the gas and stay focused with all the distractions for 6 months is probably your toughest task. Not scoring goals, not this, nothing like that. It's just staying mentally present, because it's so difficult when you're away from what you're familiar with. And believe me, that's the realization when you win as a group, as a second family. It's so special knowing that you'll never have that same group of guys again. So, I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, especially in minor league hockey, but it's what you're playing for that really counts in my mind.
Yeah, and you guys got it this year.
Yeah.
That's what it matters.
I mean, like if anybody was coming to win, and we always say that in Fort Wayne, you're going to have an opportunity to win, because we'll always recruit good teams, because everybody wants to play in front of a sold out building. But the way it happened, there couldn't have been a more Cinderella story. I mean, the city of Fort Wayne knows their hockey, but they know Fort Wayne hockey. They might not be able to tell you who the NHL or the American Hockey League is, but if you play for the Komets, you're their NHL. Nice. People will buy a dinner. They'll recognize you in the supermarket. They'll, you need a free oil change, you're a Komet, no problem. We got you. Free golf, we got you. So that's one of the coolest things is you're the big fish in this town. And it would be like your Connor McDavid in Edmonton. People will treat you the exact same way, which I think is, for the minor leagues, you will never get a better hockey experience out of anything than Fort Wayne.
Yeah, Fergie was telling me bits and pieces, and he said it was a pretty cool experience. So I love the fact that there is that out there. So I'm definitely gonna have to make a trip down to Fort Wayne, bring the boys down, and see what it's like. You brought up practice. I'm about to finish this book called "Talent is Overrated," and it goes into what really separates world-class performers from everybody else. It's written by Jeff Colvin. It's a difficult read because essentially it breaks down to saying that no one has built anyone any differently than anyone else, but it comes down to how much work and effort you put in, and more specifically, deliberate practice. Can you share what you've seen and you've gone through during your career, both as a player and coach now, and how important practice is, and the stress and emphasis that you put on it now as a coach?
100%. I mean, my job is done during practice. It's not done during the games. If you're trying to coach during the game, you fail to prepare at that moment. Everything's got to be done in your practice, and you have to be deliberate with how you want to be able to have your team play. So, I mean, habits is a big thing. If you want guys to stop at the net during the game, you've got to have them stop at the net in practice. You want them to compete hard, they've got to compete hard against each other. Anybody that's been through it knows that you can't just flip a switch sometimes, and the ones that do have got a little something extra special. But you're a creature of habit, and if you have good habits, you're going to find yourself that you find yourself lucky more often than not. If you don't prepare the same way, you don't have good habits, you'll find that you're unlucky because you won't get those bounces, or those good things won't come to you. And the guys that take their job seriously are the most important ones to me. Like right off the top of my head, we've got a guy, Matt Bowdens, who is 28 years old now. He graduated from UNB. He won a junior championship, 3 collegiate championships, and He's the same intensity on the ice, even in your meetings, as the same way he plays. Like, that's who he is. He doesn't differ. And everything he ever got is because he was working for it, which I truly admire. And some other people have the talent, but they don't have the work ethic. And you see it like, this is a waste sometimes, because they could be doing so much more to put themselves in a better position. So as far as practice goes, that's really, especially early, where you have to get everybody on the same page that you want them to be. And it goes back to that earlier saying that there's no right way to do one thing and there's no wrong way to do one thing. It's just the way your leader wants you to do it. And if you can have everybody buy into that type of message, you're going to have success. And for us, it rings true this year, is that no matter what we did, guys were willing to do it. And if we made mistakes, I would fall forward and know that, sorry about that. It was my mistake, and they respect that, and you try to figure it out as a team the next time. So everything happens in practice, and then it's going to translate into the games. And that's where I don't really coach. You just let the guys play and call out who's up.
You talk about, there isn't necessarily one specific way. What are dinner events, social events like in the Boudreau household, where there are a couple different opinions, especially in the hockey specific world? Is there someone who dominates the conversation, or when Bruce chimes in, does everyone else listen, or what's the dynamic like? I'm curious.
Well, my dad's nickname is Gabby. He's a talker, I'm in Coke. He's even talk a little bit more, but we've all got a lot of similar personalities. Like, it's a fun dinner table. And like, just even for example, like, I didn't grow up with my father. My parents were split, but we talk almost every single day, if not twice a day. And it's something like where my dad won a championship in 1999 in the ECHL, and he's got a storied career, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware of. And he was calling me and wishing me congratulations, and Sirius XM had me on the radio and all this stuff, and I was chirping him, and I said, it took him so long. It took him 3 years in the East Coast to win his first championship. It was in my first full season. So, you've got the rights. And then he'll ask me how many professional goals I scored, and he's got well over 600. I think I've got like 14 or something, So there's a lot of back and forth banter, but that's what makes it fun. I mean, a lot of memories growing up in a hockey family. He couldn't be more proud of me at the time, but he's lived the experience. I'm living the experience, and it makes for a great connection.
Yeah, not a bad guy to be able to call up and pick the brain of during times where you need a little extra insight or wisdom to draw upon. Hey.
Yeah, no, it's been fun, and honestly, I have asked him a lot of questions, and sometimes I take his advice, and sometimes I don't. And I remember going into Game 3, I sat out our leading scorer. He was sick and wasn't feeling well, and one of our depth players had a goal and an assist, including the game winner. But the next game at home, our leading scorer was back and healthy. And I say, do I take him out? The guy just had a goal and assist and won us the game. And what do I do? He's like, do what your heart tells you, put the best team on the ice. And I did that. And we won. We closed the series. And so there's always those little things that I feel extremely fortunate about, to be able to grow up with that as the norm, where so many other people take it for what it is. And that's an NHL coach talking to you and trying to give you advice, which for me, it doesn't, it does resonate with me, understanding how lucky I am in those situations.
For sure. Yeah. I've got a couple of friends, actually. Raven D'Souza, who you might know, was always speaks very highly of your father and the way he's able to get people's attention on the ice and explain exactly what he's looking for and why, which I think is so important as a coach. Ben, I sincerely appreciate you coming on, sharing some of your insights. I'd maybe love if you could share your best story from pro hockey, whether that's as a coach, as a player, or maybe a bit of insight as to exactly what your favorite moments were, because I want to showcase to people, despite the fact that it maybe at times isn't the glamorous lifestyle, that there's still a hell of a lot of fun to be had. Maybe your best moment from there, if you want to share one, other than bringing home the Kelly Cup.
No problem. I mean, that's obviously tops it all, but I'll start with the least glamorous moment of my career. And I told you, it's not about where you start. It's about how you finish. And for us, my wife and I signed a $15,000 contract to coach in the East Coast my first year in California. And it was my first time going through it. And I didn't negotiate any travel expenses home. Right. So when the season ended and we weren't in the playoffs, we got to go from the desert in California all the way back to Ontario. And you're looking at 5 days. We didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So my wife's mother came down, picked her up, drove back home, started working. I had to stay for 6 weeks just to pick up an extra job, just to make enough money to drive home. And when it came down to it, my buddy flew in to help me pack. We didn't do much packing. We just golfed and kind of drank a little bit. The next day we had to go from Bakersfield to Anaheim, where my dad was coaching at the time. And then we were going to, do our thing across the country, make it to consecutive days. Well, I've got a Hyundai Elantra, I've got the trailer, and I've got to put it on. And I got 4 hours sleep or whatever. And I put it on the trailer, and we get moving, and we just threw everything into the back of the trailer, and we get going down the highway. And somebody's coming up next to me and honking their horn and doing this with their thumbs up. And I've got a Ducks flag on my car that I'm towing, and it's right when they're in the conference finals. So I look over and I'm going, yeah, go Ducks, go Ducks. And he takes off, and the next guy comes up behind him, honking his horn and giving me the thumbs up. And I'm like, geez, there's a lot of Ducks fans in California. My buddy's like, you should pull over. Maybe something's wrong. And so I go to pull over the first chance I can off the highway. And I look in the mirror, and there's the trailer, but there's no car on the trailer. I've dropped my car off on the highway at some point, and that's when everybody's freaking out, because I didn't do up the straps right, and it just rolled off in the middle of the highway. And so I've got all my clothes and everything there. And next thing you know, like, the moment hit me, because there was no car in the trailer, and the first thing I hear is sirens. And oh my God, it's rolled off. It's killed an old lady on the side of the road or something. I was in a sheer panic, and I pulled a U-turn. It was sitting just right in the middle of the freeway. Cops had surrounded it at this point. Like, who dropped off this loaded car? What's going on? And, I was panicking. My hands were trembling, and ended up no worse for wear outside of a couple little scrapes and stuff on the car. But we got going, and we were through Arizona, through New Mexico, and then we got to the Midwest, and there was all these floods and everything. And you hear this loud bang, and this car comes up again, and they're giving us the thumbs up, and I'm like, oh my God. Immediately we pulled over, and the car's there and everything's good. But both the wheels on the trailer had exploded, and we had been driving on the rims, towing our car just on the rims on the trailer, and sparks are flying everywhere. The trailer's almost on fire, because it's been like a wheel sharpening the thing. And so anyways, to travel home for my first pro hockey season, no money, middle of the world, basically in Oklahoma, waiting for a tow truck for hours on end. I mean, those are the things that you remember. Thank God you escape it alive. But That's the journey that you go on, that, it's honestly, without that, you'd never get that kind of life experience without playing hockey or whether coaching hockey. And it's, as funny as it wasn't at the time, it's a great story to tell now. And there's a million of them, some PG, some not so PG, but it's just a collection of life memories. And in the last 7 years, there's been so many highs, so many lows. And, that's one of the funny lows, but all the highs outweigh all the lows. And, I posted a couple videos of celebrating with the cup and the atmosphere. And anytime you can bring 10,500 people to your feet, I mean, I feel like a legitimate rock star in this city right now. The mayor's having us downtown. They're giving us the key. It's the Fort Wayne Komet Day. The bridge is lit up our colors. And, I may get free parking tickets for life out of this thing, just by winning a cup. But that's all the good stuff that comes with it. And to look back, honestly, over all the experiences, it just all comes from chasing a dream and trying to live in the moment, enjoy all those experiences. And I've been extremely fortunate so far in my young career, not only to win, but to continually be employed. And, honestly, it's a blessing. It's so much fun. It's not easy, but there's nothing else in my life that I'd rather do at this moment.
Yeah, and you've obviously picked the right industry, and you're doing some incredible things. So winning in your seventh season is no small feat. Your third year as a head coach is pretty incredible. Ben, I'm very fortunate and grateful to have had you on the Athletes Podcast. The way we wrap up every episode is we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice would be to the next generation of athletes. I know you've given a ton of insight, but if there was maybe one way to summarize it all into your Coles Notes version, what would it be?
Just to believe in your own ability. And that's something that, to be honest, it feels great to prove people wrong. And for me, I never had an extensive playing resume, and there's a ton of other people out there that are probably more qualified to do what I am doing. But the one thing I never stopped doing was believing that I've got the ability to coach a hockey team. And it felt great when you win, because it validates what you're trying to do, that maybe I do know what I'm doing a little bit. And the same thing with the hockey players is, whether it happens for a 10, 16, 21, even 30, some guys is if you believe in yourself, you keep going until your legs fall off or your dream is crushed, because the ones that give up will never know how it feels to go out and achieve something so special your entire life for. So for me, you don't do that unless you believe in yourself, and you'll be surprised when you do how many other people start to believe in you as well.
Very wise words, and I think I'll echo the fact that the worst thing that you can have later in life is regret. And I think when you are pursuing a dream, like you said, and going at it full force, you will never regret what you are working to achieve. So Ben, again, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights. I look forward to keeping in touch, seeing the Komets continue to crush down there in Fort Wayne, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Thank you. And special shout out to Raven. She's got to be in town next August, not down south in the Bahamas. We need her at the hockey. She's our number one employee. So can't wait to get back to Niagara and see everybody. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, folks, for tuning into the 89th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Ben Boudreau. Sincerely appreciate every single one of you who are listening. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you consume our content. We sincerely appreciate it. This was an incredible episode featuring Ben. He dove into some of his stories as a player, now as a coach for the Fort Wayne Komets. They brought home the Kelly Cup just recently. It was a pleasure to have him on. Jordan Maslin is our producer. Ian Singleton is our videographer. I'm David Stark, your host. This was episode 89. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!